Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 24th annual celebration of National Family Caregiver Month. My name is Paulina Milana, the USC Family Caregiver Support Center's Community Engagement and Program Specialist, and I'll be your host today. Each year during the month of November, we offer our family caregivers a conference called C.A.L.M. It stands for Caregivers Are Learning More. And this year's special suite of events is focusing on balance. That's our theme. As caregivers, we're juggling not only our own lives, but the lives of those who trust us with their care. I think I can safely say that for any one of us, it's not easy to find that balance, or if we do, to maintain it. I also think as caregivers, there may be times when we wonder if balance is even possible. What we have planned for you this month is going to address this topic of balance as it applies to several areas of our lives. And we'll be doing this through the stories of family caregivers sharing with us in their own words their real life experiences and best practices. Now, before we get into it, we have a special message from our center's director, Dr. Donna Benton. Dr. Donna Benton is the director of the Family Caregiver Support Center at the USC School of Gerontology. She has 30 plus years of experience in direct service, advocacy, and developing programs for families caring for people with dementia and other brain impairing conditions. Dr. Benton was appointed to the California Master Plan for Aging and the California Commission on Aging. Her research focus is on the development of online evidence based interventions for family caregivers to improve their mental and physical health and well being, and for the prevention of elder mistreatment. Let's give Dr. Benton our attention now.
Hi, my name is Donna Benton, and I'm the director of the USC Family Caregiver Support Center. And I'm so happy to be with you today to celebrate National Family Caregiver Support Month. Now, every month, we here at the LA Caregiver Resource Center bring to you educational, thought-provoking, and fun content as part of our C.A.L.M conference. C.A.L.M, which stands for Caregivers Are Learning More, is in its 24th year. And every year, we focus on a particular theme that, we think will resonate with you. Now, this year, our month-long programming is dedicated to helping you find more balance in your lives. And, who among us couldn't use a little more of that? I mean, I know I could. We all seem to be juggling so much more than ever before. We have careers and health and finance and relationships. And then on top of everything that's happening in our world around politics and climate change, well, when you put all that together and it's served up 24/7 on the news and in social media, it's really hard to stay afloat with all of that. But then sometimes, you add to it being a family caregiver for someone else who, well, they can't care for themselves any longer. And you might really feel overwhelmed. And it certainly can make us feel like we're on shaky ground. But even on shaky ground, we can find a way to balance all that comes our way. And we here at the USC Caregiver Resource Center, well, we've worked hard to put together a C.A.L.M conference that we think will help you do just that. So during today's kickoff event, we're going to bring you some real life stories from family caregivers just like you, who found the courage to share their experiences by authoring a chapter in a book called The Caregiver Chronicles. Now, later this month, we'll be offering smaller group sessions with family caregivers alongside some experts to not only have a conversation about topics specific to the caregiver journey, but to also deliver some options designed to help each and every one of us strike that balance that we seek. Now, these are just a few of the events that are planned for you this month, and you can find out more about other events on our website, losangelescrc.usc.edu, and just go to the events tab. And while you're there, check out our support groups. or the other help that we offer. And just you can do that by clicking on the Care Nav button. Now, you don't have to go it alone because we're here for you. But let's get back to why you're here today, our presentation. So thank you for coming, and I'll turn it back over to our host, Paulina.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benton. And thank you all for giving us your attention today. This is our kickoff to our month of sessions to help us all find more balance. We hope you enjoy this and more to come. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. On behalf of USC and the Los Angeles Family Caregiver Center, I am so happy that you decided to hop on to this call. This is our kickoff to November National Family Caregiver Month. And my name is Paulina Milana. And I am going to be your tour guide today. In this conversation, we are going to be having with a number of family caregivers who have walked in similar shoes as you, or are even currently walking in similar shoes as you, and who had the courage to tell their stories in a book, a collective. So back in 2023, we had an opportunity to tell our stories as family caregivers in a collective book. And 22 family caregivers stepped up, and we created this book called The Caregiver Chronicles. 22 family caregivers get real about the ties that bind. Now, today, you're going to hear from several of those family caregivers. They're going to be sharing a little bit about their stories, a little bit about their experiences, always with a focus on what what it is to have balance or how to find balance. Balance is our theme for 2024 and the Family Caregiver Support Center's CALM conference. Caregivers are learning more about balance. That's what we're going to be focusing on. Now, today we're doing a bit of an overview with as many caregivers who are authors in the book showing up today to have a conversation. And then later on in the month, we are going to be having smaller groups with a handful of each of the caregivers, each one focused on a certain topic that has to do with balance, and we'll be bringing on some experts. So you'll see throughout this presentation, or this conversation, I should say, URLs at the bottom or places where you can sign up, register for those upcoming sessions. So without further ado, I am going to open this up with our family caregivers. I'm going to ask each one to just take a minute or so to introduce themselves, let us know who they care for or cared for, and to let us know just a smidge about, the theme of their chapter, or anything they want to let us know just in the overview. And then after that, we'll get to some questions. So how about we start with, I'm just gonna pick people at random. How's that? I think I should have one of those like little buckets where you pull out like the little, the numbers of the names. But how about we start with, I'm going to start with Wendy, chapter 5.
Okay, I'm Wendy Lou Toda, and I'm a practicing artist and a poet. So for me, writing poetry helps me make sense of the chaos of caregiving. I'm a caregiver to my parents who are both in their 90s, and I also supported my auntie as she was caring for my uncle. The spareness of poetic language helps me like name and express my honest feelings at a gut level. Uh, we caregivers don't have a lot of time. So I find that poetry is a really easily accessible way to create. I can be in a medical appointment, I can be sitting in a parking lot and just have this moment, and all I have to do is take out my phone and write. It's been a healing and therapeutic practice that I turn to often. especially as I continue to walk with the slow grief of my mother's cognitive decline. So poetry keeps me sane and it helps me say what I need to say. My chapter is a selection of poems.
That's beautiful. And, again, get the book because Wendy's chapter is just absolutely, well, poetic and it's beautiful. So thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
all right. So let's go to Allison.
Hi, so I am Allison and I care for my grandmother who is 99. And I've been full force caregiving, I guess, for about the last 4 years. And um, that is it. Um, yeah.
And Allison is probably one of our humble authors here. Her chapter is beautiful, lyrical, and honestly, it's one. I mean, you'll want to read them all, but it's a great read. So thank you, Allison, for being here. And so let's go to Shanice.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Shanice Karan, and I had the pleasure, joy, honor of being the primary caregiver of my grandmother. My journey as a caregiver started at a young age. So from 13 until she transitioned when I was 19, I was her sole care provider because my parents had already transitioned. I was the only child. My mom was the only child. So if not me, then who, right? So as a caregiver, there are a lot of tough decisions that you have to make along the way. And I was faced with those tough decisions at a very young age while I'm trying to balance completing high school and then starting my undergraduate career. And I talk about one of the tough decisions that I had to make, which ultimately led me to choosing self preservation. So I wrote chapter 7, Bags Packed.
Yeah. And so for anyone who finds themselves being a caregiver from childhood, this is a chapter you definitely are going to want to tap into. So thank you, Shanice. Thank you. So let's go to Enma.
Hi. Hi, I'm Emma. I am the author of chapter 4. And my chapter talks about the power of love, the power of self-care, the power of educating yourself about the different disease, and advocating for your loved ones and advocating for yourself. So my husband was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's or dementia. And so I cared for him for over 15 years. And my chapter is about the challenges and highlights, and it's written with lots of love, and not only for Frank, but also for myself. So what helped me to keep moving forward? I found it really fulfilling, and there was a lot of emotions involved, in writing this chapter. This will be my first time that I written something like that. However, because of the opportunity that I had, a lot of opportunities have come along, and I am sharing this beautiful story in different languages. So I appreciate you, Paulina, and for giving me the opportunity.
And we appreciate you. I mean, you are one of our authors who has started to kind of translate the chapter into another language. I think that's beautiful, just reaching more and more people. So thank you. Um, let's go to Mercedes.
Hello, my name's Mercedes. I hope you guys can hear me. And I'm in chapter 19. My title is called It's a Little Bit Like Marble Cake, and the title will make sense once you get through the end. So my mother and I are caregivers for my older brother. He had a traumatic brain injury in 2015, and the injury was severe enough that it made him depend on care in general. And he's been in a skilled nursing facility since then. But I did want to share a little bit about the title of my book. It actually comes from a real experience. When I was 12 and I had marble cake for the first time, I was kind of annoyed when they hand me the slice because I was like, who mixes vanilla and chocolate together? Like that's weird. And so yeah, I literally try to pick the swirls apart just to get each flavor because it just, I don't know. But this became a theme in my life, actually. And basically, my story is about acceptance, about not, accepting the good and the bad and how they impact one another and not being able to separate it. So yeah.
Yeah, that I love that. I always loved the marble cake kind of theme, and now I wish I had a piece because you've made me hungry. So, all right, thank you, Mercedes. Thank you. Let's go to Deb.
Hi, my name is Debbie Tynan. I am Chapter 16, Raising Parents. I'd never written anything before like this. Um, and it became very cathartic, not just for me, because I felt like I was hoping that I will be helping other people um, learn from my experience and try to help them navigate this very what becomes overwhelming process. It doesn't just from day one, it just kind of slowly morphs into this big, uh, storm, so to speak. And it's just, it's mild and then it just explodes. And there's good days and there's bad days. And the best way I've been able to overcome a lot of obstacles is just by surrendering. I can't do everything. I'm trying to do the best I can. I sometimes make mistakes. Um, and I have to forgive myself for those mistakes. So it has been a process and it continues to be an evolution. So I'm still learning to navigate, but it has been, as difficult as it is, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. I feel it a privilege to be able to take care of my mom.
A privilege and a stitch. Like her mom has a wicked sense of humor. So, but you'll have to read the book to find out what we're talking about. See how that goes? See, I should pick it up. There we go. Read the book. There we
Well,
go.
well, she's got it. My mother has a mad crush on George Clooney.
And that's that's where we'll leave it for now. Maybe at the end. You stick with us to the end. Maybe she'll share the story. But thank you, Deb. Thank you. And then how about we go to Susan Shoemaker?
Hi, I'm Susan Shoemaker. I'm chapter 2, trying to break a link in the chain, living with and learning about mental illness. Um, I've always written a journal, but never anything like this before for somebody else. And balance, I think, is a good subject for this. I started with my daughter. All her life had mental illness issues, and she ended up with my granddaughter, who I ended up getting custody of at age 4. So a lot of the time I spent waiting for the other shoe to drop in case she got the illness too, which eventually did happen when she was 11, 10 years old. She was put in a psych hospital for kids. So I never really had the time to kind of breathe and take a look at that. And that's what I wrote this chapter for, just to go through. And I don't even know how to explain it, like somebody else said about making mistakes, and could I have done something different or something better or picked up something sooner? So it was very good mentally, for myself just to write through this and really look at it and know that I did the best I could do at the time, and, that this will always be something that I'll have to look at. Because honestly, as of right now, my daughter is back living with me now. She's almost 50, and her husband died unexpectedly less than a year ago, and she lost her home and had to come back here. And so it's kind of finding that balance again because she had a lot of issues and she's going through her mental illness because of everything that happened. But it's all doing okay and one day at a time and acceptance. uh,
Yeah.
and that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. One day at a time, and one size does not fit all, right? And it's not this sprint, it's not this one and done. It's a journey. So thank you for sharing your story, Susan. Thank you, and for being here. So let's go to, how about Makiba? Oh, Makiba, you're on mute. Ah, there you
Sorry,
go.
I would be the one to do that. My name's my name's Makiba Pease. I currently care for my soon-to-be 90-year-old mom. She'll be 90 in July. I've been on the journey with her for 10 years. A little bit about my story. It's kind of a transition, and when you read it and talk about it from a balanced perspective, there's a lot of information in there about how I have had to balance caring for her and caring for a son, balancing a career and the challenges surrounded with that, and perspectives of corporate America and caring for a parent, balancing the sibling dynamic of having other siblings, and in the mix of caring for someone, building a village. What made me commit? There's some good examples of things that happened along the way of caring for my mom, which have kept me committed to caring for her. Um, First time I've ever written anything, and it's probably one of the most rewarding things that I've learned to do, which is to share my journey. The more I talk about it and have the opportunity to talk with people, the more I realize that this book, Caregiver Chronicles, is a testament that many people either are currently living or will live in the future. So I'm grateful to be able to share, and was grateful to be able to share my journey. Not easy. I don't think anybody has an easy journey. Um, but I'm loving the way that we have shared our gift of giving, and able to sit in person and share the reward that we feel that we're getting out of it.
Uh, thank you, Makiba. And just as it's Rosalind Carter, I've loved this quote forever. Rosalind Carter, the former First Lady, she actually said, "Everyone will either have been a caregiver, is a caregiver, will be a caregiver, or will need caregiving." Right. So we're all destined for it if we're not already in it, in some form or fashion. So thank you, Makiba, for sharing. And Makiba was featured on ABC TV recently. So watch, because as time goes on, more of us will be out there sharing more of our stories, hopefully encouraging everyone else to share theirs. So let's go to Mary.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Barbato. I wrote chapter 15. My story is about at age 50, I was at the top of my career. And in a second, my life changed with a major car accident where I sustained a traumatic brain injury. At the time, I didn't know why this was happening to me, but over time, gift really showed itself. I care for my father, who has cognitive disabilities that pretty much mirror what I had gone through. And some of you might be in this situation where you're still caring for yourself because of a medical condition, and now you find yourself caring for another person, in this case my father. But what a gift I had experiencing it first, so that I could be the advocate for my dad and know what he needed. And unbeknownst to me, shortly after, which was very recent, my mother had, my father had a fall where the cognitive issues started. And my mother just did in March. So I have two parents now I'm caring for with cognitive disabilities, very similar to what I still experience and have. So, what a gift my injury gave me. And that's what this story is about.
Wow, wow. And how powerful, right? To find those, silver linings in something that can seem on the surface so dark. So thank you, Mary. That is wonderful, wonderful. Um, all right. And so how about we go to Anne?
Hi, I'm Anne, and I wrote chapter 17, Adjusting for Now. I'm a therapist and palliative care social worker, so I pretty much thought I knew everything related to serious illness and caregiving. And then in 2019, my husband got diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. And then we had COVID, and I have teenagers in transition to high school, college. That was a lot of emotions. And then I got diagnosed with cancer in 2021. So it's been a real journey. And for me, that's included my own health issues and navigating that, but especially seeing my husband go through his different treatments and the adjustments of, he's still very functional and working and all that, but just the emotional changes. So I sort of consider myself as an emerging caregiver and just the emotional journey through all that. And like Mary, I feel like the story always evolves. And my father moved out here to, he's pretty high functioning too, but I'm starting to take the role on more and more in terms of supporting him. So when my topic is adjusting to now, I feel like caregiving is just, a journey that we can't really predict. We don't know what's going to happen next. And so I was really trying to just toy with that, express it in my chapter to see how it's evolving in me and my loved ones. So that's my journey.
That's wonderful. And you hit on something where it's ever evolving, right? You remind me of, for those of us who are movie buffs, there was a movie called The Never Ending Story. And I remember even in my own caregiving, which had to do with a mom and a sister, both diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, I always used to think, this is the never ending story. It's never ending. And each chapter, I have no idea where we're going, right? So thank you, Anne. And so we've got, let's see, let's go with Kay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kay Annenson, and I wrote After the Accident. So that's about my son. I'm a caregiver for my son, Ron. We call him Ronnie, even though he's 45. But he was, I came out to California because he came out here, and then I was working as an arts coordinator, and I came out to visit him, and I fell in love with Long Beach, which is where we live. So I retired. I took early retirement. I moved out here, and I cannot tell you, what happy life. He's an audio engineer, and he came out here on spec and did well, really well, and was doing better and better. And I had my little pension, and ironically, I worked as a part-time caregiver. So that was our life. And then there was COVID, which was tough on him, and especially because he lost all his income. The entertainment industry dried up. So then after COVID, he got a great job with Netflix and was flying high, really. And then he always rode a motorcycle here. He didn't even own a car. And he loved the idea how he could get to work in half an hour and took other people 2 hours. And then one night, a car tapped him to race, and he tried to get away from that car and ended up flying off of the 710 and landing on a freeway underneath it, living. But, it's so odd. When I got a call, like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, from this woman who was with him and used his phone and said, he just wanted me to call you and tell you he's okay. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. If he's okay, that means he's just going to brush himself off and, get back on the bike and come home. I mean, that's just how I began this journey 2.5 years ago. And it took a long time for me to realize that this was the rest of my life. So that's one thing I like to bring to everybody. This is a whole new world that we find ourselves in, number one, when we become a caregiver for a family member. And number two, we're just making it up as we go along. We haven't had training. We are in a whole new world. And for some, it goes slowly, like with dementia, with aging for parents. And for others, it's an accident. And we thought he would be in the hospital and then he'd get a prosthetic leg because he lost his leg. Then he'd go back to work. Oh, well, no, now there's something wrong with the hand. Oh, now there's something wrong with the eye. So the reason I was interested in this project was to write about, it's a whole new world to write about that people don't know about. And, and the other reason I wanted to write about it was to kind of help me understand it. Because I find that when I write journal, even, it helps me to process it. So anyway, 2.5 years later, we were in LA this morning at the neuro-ophthalmologist. He has optic nerve damage, and we're, this is the life. Hope I'm not taking too long. We went down there to find out if he's going to get even worse, if he's going to be blinder, if that's a word. So it's very nerve-wracking getting up at 6 a.m, driving down into LA and waiting to hear that. But what we heard was, no, he's not any worse. The optic nerves were damaged, but they're not getting worse. So that, it's an emotional roller coaster ride. So thank God you're only half blind, that kind of thing. And so on we go. And there's no more. I was a real planner, and 5-year plans, week plans, day plans, and I had to throw all that up to the air because it's just the sooner I'd make a plan, as soon as I'd make it, it would be destroyed by something else would happen. Like I got breast cancer in the middle of all of this. So I'm his caregiver. I have breast cancer. Now he's taking care of me and trying to figure out how to bring me a bowl of soup with no vision, one hand and one leg. And he did. And so that's why I wanted to contribute to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you. You remind me of one of my favorite quotes. I think it's a Hebrew quote. Man makes plans, God laughs. Right. So, the quicker we embrace that, I think the better off we are. So, all right. So we've got my 2 T's are left. So let's go alphabetically. How about Terry first?
Awesome. Hi, I'm Terry Wellbrock, and I wrote chapter 21, The Addicted Angel, about my last few weeks in hospice with my mom. She passed at 87 years old last year on my birthday. She waited. I think she held on and waited till my birthday. But I was my mother's mother from the time I was born, honestly, from the moment I can remember. And she used to introduce me as her mother to everyone, even in her 80s. And so really learning, when we talk about the balance, I heard a couple people mentioning the balance part of it, and learning to navigate from a child even up into my 50s, and in the end, those last few weeks in hospice, that sober mom, that mom that I craved, that the one that I wanted to love me so, so much, that had little glimpses of. But then we had addicted mom, the alcoholic, and that was the one who showed up so often. And I was the one that would go in and clean up the mess in that very codependent fashion, and put on my superhero cape and clean it up for her. So really, the chapter I wrote was about our journey together through that codependency. I host an international podcast on healing called the Healing Place Podcast. My mom joined me a couple times as a guest, and we talked about trauma. And as she started to do her healing work in her 80s and started to process her childhood trauma and violence and things that had happened to her, it was amazing to watch this woman in her 80s start to transition and heal. So I always say #never too late, because it is possible, no matter how old you are, to do that healing work. And so really in the end, she became my hero. Yeah, I love you, miss you, Mom.
Wow.
Thanks.
Powerful, powerful. Hashtag never too late. I love that. I love that. So thank you. Thank you. And then we've got Tanya, last but definitely not least.
Hi, so I'm Tanya Mills. I am the author of the Misspelled Chapter 8 on my just realized bubble of regret. My sister and I were caregivers for my mom throughout our entire lives. I think I started cooking dinner when I was 8. My mom suffered from severe depression, and so it was a toll, kind of like I was my mother's mother, like Terry said. Um, my chapter really speaks to guilt and regret. It's for all the things I should have done, could have done, wish I would have done, didn't do. Um, it's also about how I realized during this process. I probably need to say my mom transitioned in November of 2022. But I also realized during this process that I am not a superhuman, can't be, no superhuman here. And I learned to let go of what I just didn't have any control over. That was really hard for me, really hard to not be able to be the planner, scheduler, detailed person and make it work. And it doesn't work. So doing that, though, really allowed me to have a better understanding of myself, most importantly, on how to create balance in my life now. And it also allowed me to be able to be more empathetic and understanding of others. There are so many valuable lessons I learned, not just from this process, but from writing the chapter and from dealing with I call trauma. I felt like this whole process for me was a trauma after a trauma and then another one. And most of the time, I didn't feel like there was any end in sight whatsoever. Now I know that there is. And part of that was because I didn't know how to create a good balance. But now I do. I have learned valuable, valuable things from this journey of mine. So thank you.
That's beautiful. And I think a lot of us can relate with like the guilt, the shame, right? The regret, things like that, right? The feelings of I should be super woman, but I'm not. And forgiving yourself, forgiving them. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope that everyone here, as well as everyone who is watching this, that if you walk away with nothing else, you're not alone. And we're all testament to the fact that you aren't alone and that every one of us experiences some sort of caregiver journey, whether it's, what have we heard so far? We've got people caring for kids, grandkids, right? We've got spouses, siblings, parents, grandparents. We have ourselves, right? And thrown into the mix on top of it. So I want everyone to really just kind of take a breath and realize we're all in this together. We are. And this book actually will help people to to see themselves, to see maybe that there is a way, quote unquote, out. There's other things at play, and really to see that kind of silver lining that several of you have brought up among the mad. I like to call it finding that magic in the madness, right? Whatever madness is surrounding us. So thank you all for giving the little kind of intros to yourself and your chapters. Now I'm just going to toss out a few questions, and we will take a couple of people to answer per question. Just to make sure that we can answer or get to as many questions as we can during our time together. And if we have more time at the end, we'll come back if anyone had anything else to share. But how about we start with, I heard a lot today about writing as therapy. And for most, if not all of you, this was kind of the first official time putting pen to paper and sharing your personal experiences in a book with the world. Would anyone like to take the first question of what was that experience like for you? What would you want to share with others about it? Kay, your hand immediately shot up on that one.
Yes, because I love the question. So I wanted to get my 2 cents in. And so okay, like I was writing anyway, like journaling. And I really just that's what I did for this book. And I just wrote about the day. It's kind of like Mrs. Dalloway, Virginia Woolf, all about one day. And so this was the thing, though. My journaling was always for me, my diary kind of thing. And this was the first time I was writing for it to be read by other people. And I really felt like should I tell this? Should I say this part? Should I backspace and delete that? Is it too personal or too real or too would my family be mad at me for talking this personally or intimately with the world? So I really struggled with that. And I just, at the end, my decision was there's no point in writing it unless you're going to be searingly honest. How could you help the world? Which is what I hope the book will do, help others, unless you're going to be honest. But I found it to be hard to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Nakiba, I see your hand shot up.
I decided to do it because I needed the therapy. There is a lot of emotion associated with caring for a parent or caring for anyone, I believe. It's even more complicated when you have to deal with the family dynamic that goes along with it. And what I really needed was to tell my story in my own way. I was one of those people that got caught up in the sibling crazy, where I was sued by 2 siblings. And I needed a place to let all of that anger, frustration, all of the surrounding emotions that goes with that, and caring for a parent and giving up a career. I really needed to find a positive way to compartmentalize all of the emotions that built up along the way. It's been a 10-year journey for me. So this book was an amazing cathartic exercise. I did it actually in conjunction with therapy that was offered through the Department of Aging. And it was kind of the best decision. I really found a new balance in me telling my version of my story because it's mine. And because it was mine, I had a right to tell it my way, the way I wanted to present it. And it was very cathartic and very helpful, very spiritually cleansing. And I can honestly say I walk through the world very different because it's all there in chapter 9. I think I probably have one of the most shocking titles. It's called Living Life Waiting for Someone to Die. And as I thought it was just me and my oha moment, I realized that I was living my life waiting for my mom to die. But as I look back and the more I talk to people, it's really living your life and finding balance. Because participating in this collaborative exercise, I honestly feel like I've found a balance. She's still with me, but I again put all those emotions in a bucket, and they all live there in the bucket. They're in the bucket. They can live there, and they can be happy, right? But it gave me a different balance. Just somehow letting it go, putting it on paper. Everything worked out in the end. But I really feel like I have a different perspective and a much healthier life balance, having told and written the story.
That's awesome. I often have said, in terms of being a writer, being a book coach, that what happens when you're sick and you got an upset stomach? If you vomit, you feel a lot better, don't you?
Yeah.
So in this case, Vomit it out. If you've got stuff, do not keep it stuffed in. That will make you sicker. Get it out, get it onto the page. I also realize so many of us, we think to ourselves, why me? Right? Lord, why me? That was one of my favorite mantras. And then, you know what? Why not me? Why not me? And why not make it have greater meaning, which is exactly what every one of you has done through your telling of your stories. So again, thank you, thank you. We're going to go to the second question, and let's see. So let's talk for a minute about balancing that caregiving life with your personal life. What's been your experience? What have you found to be helpful? What's remained a challenge for you that you could use some help on? Who might want to take that question? Mary. Oh, I lost you. There you are.
Oh, I'm here. So balance. I think what I would say is even when you think you have balance and you have it under control, there's a whammy that comes and you just don't. I think it's a struggle we all have, I'm sure, because it's a tug of war of you saying to yourself, if I'm not there, what is going to happen? And what was helpful to me was when somebody said, you could be there, walk out the door, and something will happen. So take that time that you have when you can, because you can't prevent them from dying. You can't prevent them from falling. You could be right beside them and they fall or they die. So keeping that perspective, and also, as I think Debbie said earlier, it's mild at first, and then you get this explosion and overwhelming. And I had the same experience. So, and I know that I'm in a mild stage of the explosion that happened to me, which means there's another explosion coming because it just keeps getting more and more of an explosion. So I have to say to myself, it's okay that you don't go there this weekend, because one day you're not going to be able to be away from them at all. They're going to need you 24/7. And so you have to take advantage of this time you have right now, and you have to be okay with it. For me right now, I've got two parents that are declining, and they are constant reminders of my own issues that I'm fighting. And so my heart breaks for them, and it breaks for me every single day. I have three brothers, and there are brothers out there that can handle caregiving. There's brothers that can't at all, and there are brothers that if you tell them to do something, they'll be there, but they're not in the day-to-day and the details. So I'm the only girl, and so I see all the details. I have to see all the details because there's not anybody else. And it gets overwhelming. So for me, right now, I took off. I booked a flight last week and said, I'm going to Florida. I'm going by myself because I'm so burnt out and I have no sanity left. I'm no good to my parents. So for a week, my brothers might not be there for my parents. My parents might decline even more. Something might happen, but I can't prevent that. But what I can do is take care of myself so that when I go back, I am better for them. And I think the one thing that I still need help on is managing the acceptance and the fear of it all. Because we all know we're all going to die. My parents are going to die. But even though I know that, what level of acceptance have I really taken it in? That's a struggle. because we're never ready for when it does happen. That's because there's a level of acceptance we haven't gotten to. So, and I'm fearful of losing them for all of these reasons. And that's something that the acceptance and the fear is what tears me apart more than anything. And so that's what I still need help with.
Mm. Well, okay, so that was powerful. I love the line about, you're no good to your parents right now unless, you start taking care of yourself. And so a round of applause for you booking that trip to Florida. I think that's awesome. And I hope you really celebrate you actually making that decision, right? So thank you, because that's going to hit home with a lot of folks I know here as well as those listening. So, um, anyone else want to take this question? Anne, I saw your hand jump up there.
So with cancer, the journey is very physical, where you're going to a lot of appointments, you're dealing with labs, you're dealing with side effects. And so what I didn't realize, and especially being in the professional side of it, was that illness is so much more than physical. So with balance for me was really identifying this just like flood of emotions that came when it's my spouse that's going through this. So the balance became, how do we deal with the physical part and deal with the emotional part? And for that, it was really sort of that anticipatory grieving, like knowing that he will die at some point, knowing that he will become more dependent. And I see sort of the worst cases where people are in the dying process, and it's easy for my head to go there and to not stay in the moment that he's still living now, that he's still functioning, that I have a relationship with him peer to peer. And so the balance for me was really, how do I hold the physical, hold the future, hold the past or the present, and the emotional part? And learning how to juggle that became really important, because, and I think it's true for any illness that you're going through or caregiving for, it's just so easy to get wrapped up in the disease and forget who I am as a person. And I guess that's still the struggle that I'm facing day to day, is how do I keep that personhood? How do I keep today the quality of life that as we're dying, we are also living? And that's, I guess, something maybe I'll always struggle with, but just that day-to-day focus on maintaining my sense of self, maintaining my sense of relationship, and how whatever self-care means is one thing, but it's also the mindset, I think, for me, that is the challenge.
Yeah. Wow. Huge for so many. I know that whole concept of identity, right? While you're in it, that's all you are, right? You're the caregiver. You can easily lose yourself. And then when they're no longer here, then wait, what am I? Right? Because you kind of lost yourself. That's beautiful, Anne. That's a great share. We'll talk about that probably more in just a smidge. But let's go to our third question. So, what impact has being a family caregiver had on your relationships, not just with your care recipient, but with others, family, friends, coworkers? How are you balancing these dynamics? And let's add the relationship to yourself, right? So, who might want to take that question? Emma, yes.
Uh, I wanted to talk about that because I have no family living in the States, just very, very few of us. However, during this journey, I found beautiful support groups, and that the people that I met have become my family, and they've been really, really helpful to me in providing resources, talking, helping me out with Frank and everything. So, and the balance, I had people that had gone through this journey before, and they share what's going to help me to survive, because it's not an easy journey. So you have to become a survivor. And how do you become a survivor? By taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. And that doesn't mean that you're selfish. On the opposite, when you take care of yourself, like I was given a respite grant and I went to Santa Barbara, and I had the most beautiful day where I came back and I was recharged. And I was like, Emma, this is Emma, the silly girl, the happy girl that takes her shoes off and walks around the beach and has a mimosa. Why not? That's me, my own individual person. But I am grateful for the people that I met along this journey that became my family. And so, do not be afraid to ask for help. You're not alone. And, I can do a lot of things by myself. I don't have to go with anybody else. Why? Because I was, I saw how other people did it and I applied. And so one of my friends will tell me, one of the things that I like about you is that, you learn and you do it, girl. So anyway, thank you for listening.
I love that. I love that, especially the mimosa. Um, Deb, you've got your hand up there. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. In terms of my friends, I don't see a lot of my friends anymore. I see just kind of the same friends more often. A lot of people just don't understand, and I don't hold that against them at all. It's just impossible to understand unless you're in the eye of the storm. It's impossible. And I mean, you can tell people, but they're just not going to get it. And that's okay. But so I don't hear from other people as much as I used to, and that's okay too. I don't have a lot to add to the conversation about what's going on because my life is Groundhog Day every day. And that's okay. And I found it was easier for me to stop making plans with people because I was canceling so much for one reason or another, not because I wanted to, but because I had to, because there was a situation at home, or because this was now my third or fourth night of maybe only having a couple hours sleep and I was exhausted. And so the pressure of making the commitment was just as worse as the guilt I felt for canceling. So it just became easier not to make plans. I have a brother who, like the rest of you, I think our first call, somebody had mentioned that their sibling labeled them, the caregiver, as controlling and manipulative. And I think we all chimed in and agreed that our non-caregiving siblings all accuse us of being controlling and manipulative, and mine is no different. And so I don't want to say that my relationship with my brother is strained. It's just not there's not a lot of respect that I have for him because I'm not going to analyze it. It doesn't matter because I feel like that's making an excuse for him. But I think that the non-caregiving family members who are accusatory it adds to the stress of the caregiving, and it makes it makes it more difficult. So I've just learned to tune it out.
Mm.
So
Goodness, I don't think you're alone in that at all. How many of us, raise your hand, right? Yeah, you've had similar instances. Wow, Deb. And you know what? It's interesting because even Anne had touched on this. It's so easy to tell someone else what they ought to do, should do, right? Um, especially when you haven't got a clue, right? I can tell anybody else how to live their lives. I'm great at it, believe me. But I have no idea what they're really going through, right? So, and when it comes to your own life, that's a whole different story. And when you've got this caregiving thing kind of going on, we've already touched on it, so many emotions. You love the person, you can't stand the person. Um, you we've got chapters that are actually titled waiting for someone to die, right? So what I just kind of want to put out there, um, because we often say to ourselves, you know, this sucks. I'm not getting support, but it's okay. It's okay. Well, hey, you know what? What if it's not okay? What if it's okay not to be okay? So give ourselves, one of the things with writing, giving ourselves permission to feel whatever it is that we're feeling because it's all valid, right? So love what you shared, Deb. Love what everyone has been sharing. And let's go to our next question. And we will come back to all this. We'll kind of just have a free fall because I think we'll have time, I hope. So the next question is, does anyone care to share a time when you struggled to find that balance, but ta-da, somehow you did and you overcame it? Or share a time when you struck that perfect balance and how it played out? Anyone want to take that? Okay, so I've got Kay and Makiba. I just want to make sure. So Kay and Makiba, love you both. You answered our first question. I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to do at least one question. So is there anyone else who might want to tackle this one? If not, we'll totally go to Kay and Makiba. Terry, I see the little twinkle fingers there.
Well, I thought I would just throw out here that as I went through my healing journey from my own personal life through trauma in my early life, I started implementing, and I called it building my coping skills toolbox, and started learning all kinds of wonderful strategies, alternative strategies outside of therapy. I was doing EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, a big mouthful, about early childhood trauma. But I was also working with kiddos in a mental health agency and teaching them about yoga and nature walks and art therapy and all of these wonderful things. And I thought, wait a minute, I can utilize all these things. So I started bringing all these things into my life. And the thing that really, really made that balance aha moment difference was on my calendar, I started putting 15-minute nature walk, half hour of journaling, whatever it was. I mean, even things like morning prayers, like just taking that 5 minutes in the morning, doing some spiritual work. And by putting it on my calendar and making it a to-do list item, just as I would a meeting and anything else that was important, or anything for my mom, doctor appointment mom, 8 o'clock, whatever it was, putting those self-care strategies as a priority on my to-do list, my daily to-do list. It was amazing because once I started implementing them, they became habit. And by becoming habit, all of a sudden these self-care strategies were just a part of my life. And so I didn't necessarily have to look at my to-do list to know, oh, you know what I could really use? I could really use a 10-minute nature walk just to rebalance myself. And so yeah, that was an aha moment when I realized, oh, I can prioritize self-care and that's okay, and it helps.
Great suggestions. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I need an entire day or, right, those little snippets. If I can just ask a follow up to you, how long did it take for you to actually really start practicing it versus, just that first time? Was there a period where suddenly took a few months, a couple years? What was it?
Yeah, it really was a couple of months. I mean, my gut says a magic number of 3 months. I mean,
Mm,
it
mm,
12 weeks, if you give yourself just those couple of weeks of it, become almost like a forced daily habit.
mhm.
You find a way to squeeze it in, but then again, your body starts to recognize, wow, this is really helping, and I could really use that reprieve or that moment of whatever it is. I even put like Epsom salt bath. Like I would take a bath, and at the end of the day, when I knew I had time for me, Oh my gosh, it was so great, and just put some tea tree oil in and do whatever I needed to do, put on some meditation music. And it was me time. Um, and now I still, even with my mom's been gone just a little over a year, I still do all of those things. I still take my nature walks and do meditation and my spiritual reading and my Epsom salt baths. They're just a part of my life now because I realized how absolutely crucial it was to take care of myself.
Powerful, like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, okay, Tanya. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm just going to be brutally honest here. I never found balance until the very end. It would have been when my mom was in the hospital right before she passed. Um, I had my sister and my husband. I was blessed with a wonderful sibling, and my husband who worked all the time. And my mom was in the hospital, and so I was trying to figure out how I was going to work because I had to pay for things, how I was going to eat, when I was going to sleep. We spent the last week of my mom's life, my sister and I both in the hospital with her sleeping on cots, little chairs made out into beds. Um, and you know, I just I didn't snap. I handled it. I did what I was supposed to do. I was the faithful, wonderful daughter and sister that took care of all the wonderful responsibilities. However, after it was all over, and my mom, everything, my mom was gone, and we were sitting and relaxing. I had this almost ethereal aha moment of where I was like, I am not going to live my life that way. All of that time, all of the years I did everything that I did. I thought I was balancing. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought scheduling and doing the detail and all of the things were going to create a balance in me, and I found that that was not true, and that I wasn't practicing self care. And what made me want to speak is what Terry was saying about scheduling the time in. I started doing that after. And now I have that. It is part of my routine. It took me about 5 months to actually, but now it's part of my routine. And it taught me that all those struggles taught me a very valuable lesson in self care because I believe the key to balance is self care.
I love it. I love it. And love the brutal honesty, right? Never did find the self-care, the balance. I myself, and I say this, I've got two memoirs about it. I never found the balance to the point where I nearly destroyed myself. Had it not been for a serendipitous meeting with a therapist, and again, talk to someone, find that therapist, find that colleague, find that friend. Do not try to go it alone. So that's awesome, Tanya, Terry. Thank you, thank you. All right, next question. What role do support networks or groups, either within your families and your inner circles or outside of them, play in helping to find more balance? Who might want to take that? Now, Enma, you already went. Makiba, you're Shanice. We've got a new one, Shanice, and then we'll come back if we don't have enough. Shanice.
Okay, no, kind of like Tanya though too, or I didn't find it until the end as well. But a part of that solution was that support group, and it wasn't. Again, I was the only child. My mom was the only child, so this was a support group that I built. It was with members of the community. I mean, we lived in the home for over 40 years. So my grandmother knew a lot of people in the community, and she gave so much into, poured so much into others that now when they realize, oh, she needs something, not a problem. So, I mean, from our mailman to people from church, to friends of my mom. And once I realized, okay, I still needed to go to school. So we all know that LA traffic. I'm commuting from South Central to UCLA 3 days a week. It's not fun. She couldn't be left alone. Um, And I needed not only to get to class, I needed to be able to focus while in class. I also needed some time to do some homework too. But grandma needed her medication. She needed to eat. We needed to make sure she wasn't getting out of bed and harmed herself. So I created a schedule. I identified when all the appointments were. Eventually, we put her on hospice. So that eased a bit of the out of the home appointments and transportation and coordination and lifting and things like that. But once I realized, okay, these people are willing to help. It's hard to accept the help sometimes too. And for me, it was too, because the time it would take for me to stop, to have to orient you to what I need you to do, how it's done correctly, what she was used to, was often more draining than I could just do it myself at that point. So once I let go of that, I can do it by myself, or I have to do it by myself, it became easier. It wasn't honestly until those last 30 days, but I found a rhythm and it was okay. I need you to come and sit while I go pick up the medication. And that way I can run, since I'm already out, I know what I need to get. Or you're going to the store when you do your weekly grocery shopping. Here's some money. Can you pick this up as well? Oftentimes they didn't even want to take the money. But just speaking up and using those generic resources and anyone that is throwing out the hand to help, because I did have it. And oftentimes I realized in hindsight, I was turning it away. So when those people do call and ask, how can I have a hand? Have your list ready of how they can help, or what you have to do for that day or for that week, and delegate. And again, I waited to the last 30 days to figure that out, because I had to kind of let go, and um, it was a blessing, because I realized, wow, I do have a community, and the community kind of has been here the whole time, but I didn't maximize that. So if you could, my suggestion is, if you know what your schedule looks like for the week or for the month, what you have to get done, write a laundry list. So then when that person calls or comes by and say, how can I help? Give them the list. Pick any of these things will help. So that's kind of what I would add to that question, Paulina.
I love it. Super smart, right? A lot of times people want to help, they just don't know how, right? And so their natural reaction is just let me know what I can do, and we never tell them, right? So I love it. Have your list ready. Susan.
I just want to say I kind of had the opposite with the situation. As I was a single parent with my granddaughter, just me, the only means of financial support and everything else. There is not a lot of stuff out here for mental health. It's better than it was when my daughter was young. But even now, just finding help for her was a full-time job almost, and had to be switched around and do things so I could coordinate it with work. I had to change my job. So thank goodness I did. That was a support in itself, because I found a job where um, I could make appointments for certain days. And thank goodness for family leave, the medical act, because I didn't have to worry and be stressed about would I lose this job. And finding appointments that are I can get to. Um, we found finally, after 2 or 3 therapists, a good therapist that to this day she still sees, and I still see once a month, and that's been years now. Um, but as for other things, everything else was sporadic or for emergencies. I was a home care nurse for many years, and I got stuck in traffic because of a fatal accident. And all I could think of is it's pushing 6 o'clock and the daycare closes. So who the hell is going to get this kid? I'm an hour away and I'm sitting in traffic at least for 3 hours. So thank goodness, at least something like that, I could put my son down, and he at least finally got her, or found somebody to go get her because he was working too. So,
Mhm.
as for like support groups to go to, there really isn't any for caregivers that I ever found. And a lot of people, even the nursing and healthcare professionals I work with, are like, oh, well, what's wrong with her? She looks healthy. They don't get it. They don't get that what this is. It's an illness. And I did find a wonderful, and I can't say to this day how many times I told this woman, thank you. In middle school, she was going through the roughest time, but the guidance counselor she got was like a gift from my higher power because she was so understanding and so wonderful and helped me in so many ways, even if she couldn't, you know, keep me in work or whatever, but she understood the situation. So those kind of things really were a godsend, in a lot of ways. And it was just to take it day by day, week by week, and do what we can. Eventually, she's helped me find a program, thank goodness, that could pick up my granddaughter and take her there over the summer. So then I didn't have to worry and be all stressed. I'm going to work and leaving her home alone, So, but it's just just trial and error and trying to dig and find out whatever I could. Yeah.
Yeah. You really need to be like some sort of explorer, right? Dora the Explorer kind of going out there trying to find things. And I just want to just take a second here to say that it's not easy. None of us is going to say that, oh, it's easy. You're going to find the help that you need, right? You're going to get exactly what you need. I don't think anyone is going to say that. What I will say is, for example, the Los Angeles Family Caregiver Center, there are so many free support groups that people can tap into that are specific to what you're going through, right? If you're an adult child of someone who you are caring for, if you are a spouse, you can totally tap into those. If you are in the state of California, and these links and these URLs, you'll see them in the bottom of the screen as we talk, but you can go and check out something called CareNav. CareNav is something that you can self identify the issues that you're dealing with, and then immediately you'll get information emailed to you or sent to you that you can look through. And then, 48 hours, something like that, 72 hours, you'll actually get someone who actually calls you to find out more, and they can help you find the services you need. Now, when it comes to mental illness, because I should have a degree, an honorary degree in it, with my mom and my sister, I know, Susan, not easy, especially when you're dealing with a child, right, who has some mental illness. But I will say, just as the Los Angeles Family Caregiver Center and CareNav has options, and I believe every single state does have something similar, I will say that NAMI, the National Association for Mental Illness, is fantastic to tap into. And they too have these confidential support groups. And granted, will those support groups get you the exact thing you need? Maybe, maybe not. But what they do is exactly what we're doing here, conversation. And just talking to people who know what it's like, it's a game changer. Can we all agree with that? Like it's just, yeah. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And let's go to the next question. Okay, so this one's interesting. For many family caregivers, it's said that most don't identify or label themselves as family caregivers. Is that something you too struggled or struggle with? Why do you think so? Why do you think that's so? And how did you come to embrace that title? Oh, Mercedes.
Actually talk a little bit about that on my chapter. It's crazy, but I didn't think of myself as a caregiver until I joined the Caregiver Resource Center at USC. And I don't even remember. I think I was reading a book from like my grad program, and then I got long-term care, and then that led to the USC Care Now that you just talked about. And then they did an assessment. And they're like, "You're definitely like a caregiver." And the reason was because my brother has been in a skilled nursing facility. Um, and I just thought of myself, as like his keep my brother's keeper. Like I'm just there every day. I'm just like he's just I love my brother. Like I didn't think about it, but I started to reflect on how big that role was. It was a role that I didn't share with a lot of people because it was just so precious. I don't want people asking questions and being nosy, and and I know I maybe, and I was just actually thinking about this yesterday. I was I scared to identify myself as a caregiver? Because then it would make it real. Like, hey, like it is so true. Like my mom and I make really important decisions of his care. Like I do all his admin stuff. I'm like it was really hard to also internalize, because every time I'd be going to like let's say he had a settlement like from a job, and I have to do everything on his behalf. I always thought of it's temporarily because one day he'll be able to do it. And like I just wanted to think that way. Like it was not, it was going to be a little bit and soon enough he will do it. But I think when I came to terms like I'm a caregiver, it was life changing also because of the support groups. And I realized, man, like I was going through therapy but I still like fell apart. Like a lot happened to me in my health now, but when I started going to these support groups, I was like, oh my God, like what people were talking about, the isolation, you know, one last thing that I wanted to mention. I think you asked something about this, about balance, right? So I definitely isolated. I didn't know how. It was probably, I was like, how did I become this person? Like, and then someone in the group said, the isolation has been happening for a long time. You probably just realized it. And that made me like, wow, like, oh my God, that's true. I was the only person. And again, I don't expect my siblings because they have children, but I was doing it alone. Like my mom was, there too, but I was like, the main person doing everything. So I did struggle with that, but like now I'm like a proud caregiver and I do a lot of caregiving advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And for so many of us, it's just like, oh well, it's just the thing I do, right? And it's not like we get that support often from our families, right? I know I have a brother I love, but at one point he said, "Oh, stop being such a martyr," and I was like, "Okie dokie, got it." And not going to say anything after that. So again, I love what you're sharing about being a caregiver. I'm sorry that Karen, one of the authors, who was going to be with us tonight, who has a chapter on being an essential caregiver, right? What does that mean? And embracing that. I love that Mercedes, now you're like, yeah, you know what? I am a caregiver and I'm wearing that badge, because the more that we let that out and let others know that it's okay and it's definitely a job, right? And a half, I think the more will happen to get us the services that we need. So love that, love that. So, okay, so that was one on that question. Does anybody else want to tackle that? Allison, yay.
Yeah, so I think that as far as caregiving goes, I feel like, or as realizing when I was one, twofold is that I realized I was a caregiver for many, many years, sort of coming into this more concrete time period. And so I sort of look back and go, oh, like there was all the kernels sort of being, seeded, plant, whatever you want to call it. And then when it really came time to being an actual care, like for it, I didn't really want to do it. I think that if anybody just Googles what, like the stats of being a caregiver, it's like you start getting really fearful of, your health declines, you're going to be you're going to predecease this person, all of these things I think was kind of very, very scary. And then also too, sort of like what Mercedes was saying, is that it is an isolating thing. And everyone's journey as a caregiver is so different, but I feel like as um just as far as the title of being a caregiver, um just very isolating in the sense that um, the journey is going to be so unique. And you just kind of have to, like, I really had to sort of surrender into it, and be just, like, okay, this is what you are and this is it. And everybody's is so different. But again, you don't really want to be a caregiver when you start Googling what it is to be a caregiver. Um, but then you have to you have a galaxy, but then you kind of have to really go full force and create an entirely different one with resources, with new people, with new fresh faces to sort of help and come on board, or you're going to just, it's going to fall apart potentially. So
It's going to
yeah.
swallow. Awesome.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that you must have ESP, because, and I wasn't even going to share this, but since you brought it up, I just, I I went to Dr. Google and looked at a bunch of stuff. And in 2023, it said that caregivers spent an average of 26 hours a week on top of their full time jobs, right? So 26 hours a week caregiving plus a full time job, that 60% of people are juggling a job alongside caregiving, but they don't want to tell anybody, right? Superwoman or Superman even powers. 77% of caregivers report having major poor mental health. 40% of caregivers say that caregiving has negatively impacted their psyche and their lifestyles. 52% experience anxiety and depression. Caregivers are twice as likely in the workforce to experience a layoff. 20% report having limited career opportunities. 70% of caregivers over the age of 70 actually die first, right? So those are some super sobering stats, right? But, okay, let's remember what happened when we started on this book journey. If you remember, I showed you this quote about how something like only 3% of the population ever ends up writing the book they want to write, right? What did I tell you? Don't believe that stuff. Don't believe it's just a stat, it's just a number, right? We get to choose, we get to make changes, we get to actually do what others may say is not possible. So I never Google it. It's always not great news. I also will say we walk into this thinking, oh, how hard can this be? Oh, this is my parent. I love this parent, right? And this will be that. And then slowly we're in that pot like the frog, right? And the heat's getting turned up. Or, sometimes we don't want to do it at all, like you're talking about, Allison, and there is no one else. And we don't feel that we have a choice, right? So we become that reluctant caregiver, which is a recipe for disaster from the get go. So um, I totally hear what everyone's saying. I know that we all have experienced it. Those who are watching it, I think this is resonating with them. I hope so. Um, so thank you. We just have a few more questions. Um, the next one is, what are some common misconceptions about balancing personal life with the caregiver life that you've encountered? Tanya. Oh, oh, Tanya, you're trying to double dip here. Now, has everybody had a chance before I go to Tanya? Anyone want to tackle this who has not had a chance to speak? Nope. All right. So we're going to give it to Tanya.
I feel so privileged. So, when I saw this question, and I thought about it, I had all these great answers. And then I realized that none of those was good enough. I think personally, in my personal experience, a huge misconception is that you have to suppress your emotions and feelings and just do what has to be done. Because I did that and it doesn't work. It does not work. It was the worst possible thing I could have ever done because what it caused is a huge internal overwhelm, an internal, you're a horrible person. Why are you doing this? You could never do this. You're an idiot. You're not worthy. All of those horrible things that I've worked my entire life to get rid of, all that negative self talk. I literally felt like I was going to just explode. And I mean that seriously. I thought that I was going to wind up having a brain aneurysm or something really horrible was going to happen. And it was just a really bad thing. So as far as that, I just say you need to give yourself permission to feel, to have the emotions, to cry, to be angry, to be mad, to feel shame, to feel guilt, but acknowledge them and acknowledge that you have them. Because if you allow that to overwhelm you, the time that you have, and I've mentioned that my mother passed on in November of 2022, and I did not do all these things. The time that you have with your loved one winds up being a clinical time and not a loving, caring, being able to have memories and wonderful, loving moments with your loved one before they're gone. And even thinking about that now, I have regret for for that because I didn't allow myself to feel, and I lost precious moments that I could have had otherwise.
Hmm. Yeah. And you are definitely not alone, right? There's an entire, department at USC, if not more, on elder abuse, because that's when it kind of can creep into that, right? Either you abuse yourself or you abuse that person. So best to get yourself out of it, right? Or find another way. And you know what? Something that you said just kind of sparked a thought. And I know we've talked about this before in this group. Um, when you when you're caring for someone else, a family member, it gets to the point where you forget that they are a human, and you forget that they don't want to be in that spot either, right? I mean, I know when I may need care, I'm not going to want somebody else having to do those things for me. So sometimes it helps to remember that person and who they really are, right? Before all of this kind of took over. So, and Tanya, the whole thing with regret, the truth of it is, it's the Maya Angelou thing, right? We did what we knew how to do then. Now we know better, we do better, right? And forgiving yourself and having what you went through make greater meaning for others, that's huge, right? You're paying it forward. So I love that. Does anybody else want to answer this one? The common misconceptions about balancing Enma? Yeah, because now we're on the repeats. See?
uh, I will say that each story is different. Uh, like you said, each story is unique based on your own experiences. So, like for me, it helped me a lot to go to the support groups, and I keep repeating the same thing, but they were my lifesavers. These people, like I said before, they became my family. So uh, I will repeat again, do not be afraid to ask for help, because one of the things that I learned during this journey, nobody can read my mind and my frustration unless I ask for help. We're not mind readers. Okay. And then you ask people, everybody has different strengths. So, like I had one of my friends, she's like this 70-year-old woman. Her husband also has dementia. We became really good friends. So both of us got to go together to different events, like music at the park and dances and everything. Uh, you know, I never thought that I will meet this Asian American woman, and she became like my sister. She passed away though, but nobody can read your mind. If they cannot help you with something, they can help you with something else. Somebody can give you supplies, like everybody has the resources, everybody has their own strengths. But if you don't find anyone, join a support group, yeah, someone that you can relate. And right now I am part of a group that's called Powerful Woman. In Spanish is Mujeres Poderosas, and we help each other. We met virtually, and now we meet in person, and we have time together, lunch together, and we don't talk about the disease. We don't talk about Alzheimer's, about all these things, but it's focused on self-care.
And
Just
mimosas.
yeah. I mean, there you go. As a matter of fact, we have brunch this Sunday.
There you go. I love
So,
that. I love
don't feel
Yeah.
that you're alone. There's help out there. There's good people. Okay, there's evil people too, but then there's also it just you don't have to Google. You just find a good fit for what you're looking for. You don't like it, you don't fit in, you go to the next one. You will find someone that will be that you can relate to. So that's my point of view. But like I said, this is based on my own experience. Everybody's story is unique.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's, you know what, that's a great segue to let's go round robin and let's have everyone give your biggest life lesson as a family caregiver or the takeaway you want listeners to get from this. How about we will start with let's start with Wendy. Started with you before, I'm going to start with you again.
Okay, so I think the biggest life lesson I would want someone to take away is to take care of yourself and to be kind to yourself and to prioritize yourself, because the whole caregiving thing is like a tsunami. It's just, and it's so easy to get lost in it and to be overwhelmed by it and just to disappear into it. So, carving out time for you can feel super selfish, but it's not. So you are important and take care of you.
Love that one. Love that one. That deserves an applause. Okay, Makiba.
I think probably the biggest takeaway that I'd like to share with the world is the importance of planning. I think you open in the book and it says that you'll either be cared for, you'll care for someone, or you'll know someone. And one of the biggest things I think that society we're missing is the need for us to plan for our caregiving day. If nothing else people get from our journey and looking at our story, it's never easy. It's never going to be easy to get someone to step into the shoes to care for you, nor is it easy for you to step in and care for someone. But that journey is made a tad bit easier if those small planning documents are in place. I have become a huge, massive advocate for people to get 2 documents in place: a power of attorney and medical and durable power of attorney are the 2 necessary things that people will need to assist you. And without those, your journey is 10 times harder. And take the time to consider that if something happens to you, if you so happen to get a traumatic brain injury, if something happens to you, you have a stroke, anything that debilitates you, even on a temporary basis, think about that one person that may or may not be willing to help you, or that may have to help you, and empower them with the legal right to do it. I cannot begin to tell you the number of people that I just blatantly say, you're in your 50s and do you have a will? No. Do you have a power of attorney? No. Have you thought about who you would give power to, because you're a whole person and a whole being, and you're going to have to be, or may have to be, cared for someone. Be brave enough to empower the person to help you. If I have a voice to scream that on the loudest mountain, and hearing the journeys that my fellow authors have taken, not sure what they had in place, but I did not have that, and my journey would have been a lot easier. Actually, I did have it, but I had to fight for the position and the authority to utilize it so that I could find the balance for myself, for my son, for my life. But that's my biggest takeaway, that I want to tell people, that those are powerful tools and they're necessary tools. And we live in a society that sometimes greed and selfishness enter the picture, and judgment enters the picture. And I would just encourage anyone with an ear to have the foresight to say, if something happens to me, what do I want to happen? and put it in writing because it makes caregiving and the journey of caregiving a lot easier.
Love it. Love it. Couldn't agree more. How about Allison? Oop.
Hi, can you repeat the question?
Basically, we're just going round robin about your either greatest life lesson from being a caregiver or the takeaway you want folks to to walk away with.
I think the takeaway is it's obviously very unique, and that each person's caregiving experience is extremely different than the next person's. You don't judge yourself for virtually any of it. But I also feel like if I, just sort of circling back to just balance and this and that, what I found was if I surrendered to the entire thing, the no balance, the entirety of my being, the no, like the friendships and relationships on hold, family not being a big, cornerstone or centerpiece of it, and letting other people be that centerpiece. If I like making those shifts in my head and thinking completely changed everything. So like if the self-care comes at, 9 a.m. as opposed to 11 a.m. or whatever it is, like just complete surrender. But again, it's very tailored to whatever your, people caregive from across the country. They caregive outside of retirement homes. They caregive in their own home. So it's very, very different. Mine happens to be 24/7 and I'm very in close proximity to it. And
Yeah,
so it's
you'll find her
so it's a
me,
very
with
different
me, you'll
piece.
have
So
to find her.
anyways, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so surrender and then grab it when you can, right? I mean, pretty
Yes.
much. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, and your grandma who decided to make an appearance for us. Thank you, Rosaline. So, all right, let's go to Mercedes.
Wow, that's hard, man. There's so much, but I think my biggest takeaway in this moment would be what people have talked about, like taking care of yourself. And also, because I caregive with my mom, when this happened, she was like a different person. Like I was in so much pressure, nothing was good enough. I was I bear the brunt of her pain. Um and things got better. I enrolled in therapy, thankfully, and was in a really amazing program and center, and was able to, our relationship has transformed. But I realized that on top of every my own pain, I was bearing that pain. I was the glue of the family. Like I thought I was safe. I was like, I did therapy. I was joining this program. I thought I'm not gonna fall apart, but I absolutely did, and my health took a toll, and I'm still dealing with my health. And so, if I could go back, I would absolutely like just set better boundaries, maybe, and be like, you know, I can't do this, And I think it was in 2019 I kind of started because I did do something because I kept thinking of my brother, right? I'm like, my mom's a different person, my brother's a different person. So I was like, he's fine. Like I didn't get to pursue my dream of like, whatever, going to Central America. So I did backpack though on 2019. I was like, I'm gonna do this for me because I don't want my brother thinking I didn't fulfill something because of him. So I kept telling Manny, hey, I'm gonna go through Central America and I'm gonna go backpacking. And it was gonna be hard. It was the first time that I wouldn't see him for that long. But I was kept reminding myself, like, you need to do this. Like, you need to. And my mom was like, oh, he's really gonna miss you. And I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, he will, but I know that he's happy for me. So when I came back, I had all these videos, and I could show him stuff. So I think that was like planting a seed of like my balance and stuff. But absolutely, like, man, compassion is another thing that I learned. And it was through the exercise of writing ourselves a letter. Remember that you had us do, Paulina, before we became caregivers. I was like, oh my God, like basically, part of my letter was warning myself that I don't get to do this, and also telling myself the only way that I'm gonna make it through this, and the only way that you're gonna, like me, younger self, before this happened, is if you have compassion for yourself. Otherwise, you may not survive like this experience. So that is to me the biggest takeaway is what everyone's been saying. It's like take care of yourself, but understand your needs. Like really, figure out what are your new needs now.
Yeah. Awesome. Put your oxygen mask on before someone else, right? They tell you that in the airplane all the time. All right, Mary.
Okay, so I have two that I want to share. One is I'm in a situation where I am the key caretaker or caregiver. I do not have power of attorney and I do not have healthcare proxy. Those land on my brother that are not as involved. So when this happens, when they start making decisions and they're making decisions that directly impact me, what type of caregiver do we get in? Them saying, I know exactly what they need, but yet they're never there to know exactly what they need. But yet I have to work with that person because I'm there. But I cannot change their decision. I can try and give my opinion, but in the end, I don't have that power to make those decisions. And that was infuriating and it hurt so much. And you have to go back and say, you can only change the things you have the power to change. The rest of it, even if you feel it's not in the best interest of your parents, in my case, I have to let it go because I can't change it. Just like I have to let go that they will die one day because I can't change that. So look at the things that you can change when you're in looking down the throat of something you can't, and put your energy there because you're wasting that energy if you're trying to change something you can't. So that would be one. The second thing is listen to when people are telling you things. For instance, my mother, for about a year, was saying to me once in a while I'd come over to the house and she'd say, I'm really worried about your father. And it would just come out nonchalantly, I'm really worried about your father. And I'd be like, oh, mom, she's like a cry wolf woman. I'm sure that he's fine. So, and she'd say what he did. And I go, yeah, well, I do that too sometimes. But she kept saying it, and it didn't sink in. And I think part of the reason was I didn't want it to sink in. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't want to deal with it. Nobody's ready for it whenever it happens. You don't want to deal with it. Nobody wants to be a caregiver. I mean, you do from the goodness of your heart, but once you realize what you're going through or going to go through, oh my gosh, nobody would ask for it, right? Because it hurts every single day. Your heart breaks multiple times in a day, over and over, for as long as that caregiver journey is. But if I had listened to her and taken that in, that would have given me a lot of time to plan, right? It would have given me a lot of time to accept. It would have given my dad better care earlier in his stage of cognitive challenges than what he ended up getting because I was scared and I didn't listen. And so I would say to anyone, I just was on the phone with a friend who said, oh, my dad called and he was saying, oh, I'm worried about your mom. She did this. And then she said, and then he'd call again and say, I'm worried about my mom. And she goes, I really don't know what's going on. So until I see more. And what I said to her was, but you're seeing it, you're hearing it. Go find it out. Don't wait. Go find it out. you are scared of it. You don't want it to be here, but it's here, and you can't change that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's go to Terry.
Hi. All right. To pop my glasses back on and everything. I would say, gosh, a takeaway and lesson, my final thoughts on all of this. You see this little sign next to me that says, choose happy. And so I would say that has been the positivity and maintaining that positivity has been such an important part of my mom was when she wasn't drinking was the happiest little human I've ever met in my life. Like she was just a pure joy. Unfortunately, if you added vodka, it made her into, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and completely opposite person. So by saying choose happy and having that as my motto in life, it's not fake happy, it's choosing those moments of happy. And so when I sat with my mom in hospice, knowing she was on her way out, that she was transitioning out of this life, I would play music, her favorite songs. My sister and I would sing songs together with her. We started playing cards and laughing hysterically and reminiscing about funny stories in our childhood. And even though my mom was unconscious, we could hear her trying to mumble words, and we knew she was trying to laugh along with us and participate. And so me trying to find those little moments of joy along this journey with my mom, it really made it for a beautiful journey with her in the end. One little happy story, and then I'll stop, is it was on my birthday. My sister had run home to get a happy birthday banner and a little cake for me, and she was hanging the happy birthday banner over mom's head. And all of a sudden we heard our mother gasp, took in this big breath, and my sister dropped the banner, and we both were like, Mom? And that was it. That was her last breath. But when Katie dropped the banner, only the word happy was hanging over my mom's head because the birthday part had dropped. And so to me, it was, and she had this beautiful smile on her face. And so to me, it just kind of summed up all that we had journeyed toward, which this was this beautiful, happy ending for our mom, with a glorious smile radiating really truly from her whole being, not just from her face. So yeah, so when I say choose happy, it's just finding those positive moments throughout the day to, I don't know, to bring happiness into your life.
I love it. Love it. That's awesome. And let's go to the other T. I don't know why I put the two of you together all the time, but Tanya?
Yeah, so I have a favorite saying, and I'm sure people have heard it millions of times, but there is no light without darkness. And I want, if the biggest takeaway and something that I learned valuable lesson during this whole process was to know that you are a wonderfully imperfect being, and that you have dreams, you have goals. They may not be things that you can actually do at this moment, but you have them, and they are very, very important. There's a lot of times that things seem really dark, but without dark, there is no light. Use all of these experiences, the things that you learn about yourself during this process, the heartbreaks, the joys, the love, the peace, all of the things that are wrapped up in being a caregiver, as stepping stones to learn more about yourself, to grow from them, and to create change, not just for yourself, but for others, like what we're doing here. I think that that's one of the things we're doing. To remember that life is full of possibilities. No matter where you are, where you go, that's full of possibilities, even in the darkness, and that you are always enough. That's probably what my biggest thing for people to take away.
I love it. Love it. Shanice.
Sure. I mean, when you go towards the end, everyone has said everything, right? That you wanted to say. So I was, everyone was saying something. I'm crossing off my list. Like, well, can't say that. But what I am left with is a lesson that I learned, or a very valuable one that I learned, was to extend grace to myself. Extend grace to yourself. Extend grace to when you're making those tough decisions, because there are plenty that you're going to have to make. I know, as you'll see when you read the chapter, or my chapter specifically, I was burnt out. I was at the end of being able to care for my grandmother in the home and making the decision to place her in a facility. And you question yourself: Did I make the right decision? Am I making the right choice? Is this right for her? And I had to allow myself, or rewire my brain or my thinking, of giving myself grace, and recognizing that eventually the caregiving journey will come to an end. And when it's all said and done, you're left with self, and you have to have a certain amount of peace and grace given with the decisions you made during the journey. Yeah, okay with it. Um, that's kind of what I was left with after everyone said everything else.
Yeah, but that was a good one. That was a really good one. I'm going to cross that off my list. I didn't even have it on my list. So that's how good it was. So, all right, that was awesome. Let's go to Deb.
So I couldn't agree more with what everybody else said. So I'm going to go on a different path in terms of my biggest takeaway. And it is something that I'm involved with right now. And that is not to take no for an answer, especially from your insurance companies. I don't know, I did not know what home health was when I first started this, and that is the division of, it is a division of your medical insurance. And the home health branch are the ones responsible for sending different skilled professionals to the home, whether it's nursing or physical therapy, et cetera. But I learned that the home health agencies don't want to invest in the elderly, which is age discrimination, and that's illegal. And I made a lot of noise, and our congressman has taken up our complaint.
Woohoo.
And so, yeah, no, I am as exhausting as it is day to day to take care of my mom, who I adore. And it is a joy to be with her. I am energized now with the fact that this complaint is going to, is in the process of going somewhere. And so I really, my takeaway is that don't give up. Don't say, when they say no or deny claims, appeal, 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 and keep knocking down doors, because when they say no, it doesn't mean that it's no. They just don't want to go forward. So I am, I am overjoyed. I don't know where this is going to go or how it's going to play out, but this is step one, and it's been a few months now, and I'm just re-energized, even though it's more work. It's been invigorating, and I want to just tell everybody, please do not accept no from an answer from the insurance company. Everything you get in the mail gives you supplemental information on how to appeal. Please appeal. Most of the time they will back down, but it won't be for everything that you want. But they would just please, I cannot emphasize enough that you just need to keep going.
That's super super important. I hope everyone heard that, right? Because they're banking on people to just go away. So kudos to you. Bravo, lady. Let's hear from Kay.
Yeah, that's all pretty much what I think too. Especially I've been fighting for 2 years for services and winning more than I'm losing, but it always starts with no. That's sort of where you start from. And then you start your strategy from the no, the first no. But and I'm still in it. I'm still really in it and failing brilliantly daily and falling apart and stapling myself back together again. So I don't really feel like I'm someone to ask advice from. But I have found in the last couple of weeks acceptance to be very peaceful, accepting that this is the situation, and this is it. This is it. I have to plan my life with this, and that has brought me some peace. And then the more peace I have, the more energy I have to deal with it. So acceptance, I will contribute.
Yeah, they say the biggest issue is not what happens to us, but our resistance to whatever's happening, right? And our demand that it's not so, right? So that's beautiful, Kay, beautiful. And we've got Susan.
For me, the big takeaway was don't put my expectations on my daughter, granddaughter, grandson. They are who they are. The illness they have is the illness, but it's not them. It doesn't define them. And they're different people. They're not me. But on the other side of that too is for me with them, I have to learn to say no. I had a philosophy now of, if they can do it themselves, I don't do it. If they really need help. And that was really hard for me, a boundary. I had to set boundaries because if they can get away with it, especially my granddaughter used to call me for ridiculous things that she thought I'm sorry, taking you to Walmart because you feel like it is not an emergency. So that's the kind of thing I had to, and get rid of the guilt and the shame. Because you know what? No, I'm getting older now. My ducks are in a row. And my job is to make sure that they can do for themselves as much as they can. And that's it, because I won't be here forever. So, and actually, since I've been doing that, things are so much more peaceful and nice. And my granddaughter doesn't call me for stupid stuff anymore. So, but it took me many, many years to learn that and to learn how to say no. And now I can go say no and go to my aerobic swim class or do what I want to do, and still help them out when they really need it. So that's what's helped me.
That's a great one. Learning to say no. Powerful, very powerful. And I think we just have Anne, right? Anne.
Well, first of all, I want to have a sequel called Self-Care and Mimosas. So that feels very inspiring. I think my takeaway was that even though we talk about our loved one and we talk about caregivers as sort of separate beings, the living experience is that it's so fused that it's hard to separate one from the other at times. And so what's my takeaway from this writing and journaling and talking to others is just the importance of honoring my emotional experience and to find ways to be able to express that, whether it's in a support group, whether it's with a therapist or friend or through art, is just so essential. And that I think through honoring my emotional process, it's giving me meaning to be able to get through the hard times, to get through the day to day. And I think Paulina said about, what did you say? You said a lot of things, but just the experience that, we can't fight this. It's not going to change. It is what it is. And so how do we move through that with dignity and with grace, and just really maintaining our personhood and our couplehood, whether that's family or, loved partner, grandmother, parent, whatever, but just maintaining both of those things, holding it together.
And I actually think someone else said that, but I'll just take the credit. How's that? Because that was great. That was awesome. So and sorry, Enma, I know you started us off, but did you have a last kind of takeaway that you wanted to share?
Okay. Do not be afraid to write your own story. Each story is unique. You're going to find a lot of emotions, but I am so grateful that I was able to write my chapter because I got to read to my husband and before his final days. And that in itself was my rewards. And also being able to share not only my story, but the story of other caregivers, because each story is different, with other people that are finding it uplifting. And I said, oh, I can relate to this situation. I can relate to this other one because each one is different. So I will say, do not be afraid. Okay, no regrets. Hashtag no regrets. I did it my way.
Uh-oh, you're gonna make us all sing. I did it. Whatever. But and you stole like my takeaway because I was going to say silence suffocates. It does. And the best thing you can do is tell your story. Tell your story in the way you want it told. Doesn't matter if nobody else sees it, but you will be vomiting out a bunch of gunk you got going on in there that is poison to you. And if you get it out and you love it and you want to share it and you want to give it greater meaning, great. If you don't, that's great too, but don't keep it stuffed inside, right? Give yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling, put it on the page, tell your story, right? Leave a legacy, if for nothing else. So we have come to the end of our little conversation here. I first want to say thank you to everyone who has shown up today. This was a great chat. I know we could go on and on and on and on and on, and we are going to go on and on and on, right? Because there will be several other smaller group sessions, like I had said in the beginning of the hour. You will find links to where you can register for those. They will be with a handful of folks. Some you met here, some weren't able to come here, but they are also authors of the book, and they will be paired up with experts on certain topics that help bring balance. So please do register. You'll find the link below. Also, if you are looking for services for help, you also will see some links below, right, to the Los Angeles Family Caregiver Center, to CareNav. We'll try and maybe get a few others up there, but whatever state you might live in, whatever part of the world, know that there are services out there. There are great support groups. Tap into those. Don't do this yourself. It's not a DIY project, okay? Also, take a look. We've got events all throughout the month of November and beyond. Most are free. We're not the only organization who has that. So please just, instead of Googling all those scary stats, right? Google support services and things that actually bring more joy, right? Terry, choose happy, that bring more joy to your everyday, whatever your madness is, that you're finding that magic. Yeah. So with that, I bid you all farewell. Again, I'm Paulina Milana from the USC Family Caregiver Support Center. These are the family caregivers who authored a chapter in the caregiver book. So I bid you good night. Thank you so much. And we will see you hopefully in other sessions. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Bye-bye. Oh my goodness. I know I was part of that, but wasn't that powerful? And those stories, I love them. And I can't imagine they didn't resonate with those of you joining this year's C.A.L.M. And did you catch on the screen the links about where else to get information and what else is coming? I hope you did. If not, we will post them again because I want to make sure you sign up for the sessions we have planned for you throughout this month. As I said before, we'll be focusing on topics from balancing finances and legal needs to balancing work and play and much, much more. You won't want to miss them. Thank you again, and I'll see you very shortly in future sessions. Bye-bye.